Hi guys, welcome to the video. I hope everyone's all good. Today's video we are going to cover a lower session at Warehouse Gym. So for anyone who's watched the channel for a little while, you'll probably know or recognise the gym because I used to train out of the Warehouse Gym when I was doing the Quest to Compete series. I think that's what series it was. So yeah, on the lower upper split at the minute, it's running really well. Sessions are progressing nicely, enjoying every session. So obviously last video I took you through the upper session at Evo Gym, so today I'm going to take you through the lower session at Warehouse Gym. I've just finished pre-workout, I'm literally just about to go and set off driving to the gym. So yeah, just sit back, relax, enjoy the video. Any questions at all, please ask, and yeah, I'll run you all through the session. Right then guys, so I'm just going to take you through the full lower session. So this is lower 2, so this is my Thursday session at the Warehouse Gym. First of all, we'll start off with a calf raise. So currently I'm doing calves at the start of both leg sessions, and I'm just doing it as like a triple rest pause, so 3 fail points. I'm doing them blood flow restricted as well. I think I spoke about this in another video. Just generally because I want to try and get as much out of them as I can, and I think blood flow restricted training on the calves, it makes a lot of sense, and I do them as a rest pause because I also think that makes a lot of sense with the calves, because you can get a lot of effective reps out of them with very, very minimal fatigue. So I'll do one day, or one of the lower days. We'll start off with a calf press where knees are extended. So like standing one, and then one will start off where knees are bent, like a seated one. Reason behind that is that when the knees are flexed, you're going to target a little bit more the soleus because it doesn't cross past the knee joint, whereas when the knee is extended, you're going to target a little bit more the gastrocnemius because it crosses over the knee joint. Generally, I'll work within like an 8 to 10 rep range with the rest pauses on the seated, and like a 10 to 15 on the standing, just because there's a little bit of evidence that lower rep ranges on the soleus can be a little bit more productive, a little bit more beneficial, but generally they just need to grow. So then we move on to the Life Fitness seated hamstring curl. So set 1, I'll press myself away from the pad. So the goal of this set is to use as much load as possible. So this is our loading set, a set of 8 to 10. Therefore, I'm pressing away from the pad because I can generally move more load on this. So yes, there will be a little bit more erector involvement, but like I said, the goal for this set is load the hamstrings with as much load as we can, and then on the second set we'll pull into the machine instead. Both sets, the goal is to tap at the top of each rep to keep it as standardized as possible. So every single time at the top, I'll be tapping to make sure that the range of each rep is the same, and the goal at the bottom of each rep is to get a 2 second contraction. So when I get it fully short, try and hold it there for a 2 count in my head for 1, 2, and then control. So that was the top set, and then as you can see, like I said, the second set here, I'm sort of pulling into the pad versus pressing away from it. So the reason behind that is to try and take out any erector involvement now and really get as much out of the hamstrings, solely out the hamstrings as possible. So the load is decreased. Generally, we're trying to get a little bit more of a, let's say, a mind-muscle connection on this set, and generally trying to get a little bit more internal feel in the hamstrings versus the last set, which is just the loading set, really. Obviously you can't not feel it in your hamstrings on the loading set, but you're going to have a little bit more erector come into it. But again, as you can see, tapping at the top of each rep and making sure that I'm trying to get that little 2 count at the bottom of every single rep, and trying to make the most out of the hamstrings in their shortened range early on in the session, because as we're fresh, the ability to get the muscle short is greatest at the start of the session. So I'm going to try and make the most of that by spending a little bit longer in that contracted position. I would usually have an adductor before this, so in between calves and hamstrings, I would usually have an adductor. But my right adductor's got something wrong with it at the minute. I can't do any adductors. But on there, we also would be doing the same, holding the contraction, not just throwing it around, trying to make the most of the squeeze and again, get the most out of the muscle in its shortened position. So then we go on to the Nautilus leg extension. So as you can see, there's a band on the machine. So the reason behind that is so that we can really, again, load the shortened range as much as possible. So obviously with a leg extension, generally the weight will drop off slightly past the mid-range. So usually the middle part is the hardest. It's almost like if you imagine the resistance profile of any leg extension, unless you can load it in different ranges, it's generally like a bell curve where it's like light, heavy, light. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it heavy at the top as well and get the most out of the quads in their shortened position. So the first set is with the band and with a 2-second pause at the top. Then the second set here is also with the band, but with no real pause at the top or the bottom. So it's almost like just every rep on this set, I just think get a pinch and then control. So I'm not just letting it chuck me back down. I'm still controlling the eccentric, but I'm trying to get a slight pinch in the quads every rep to know that I am contracting and I'm not just throwing the weight around. So with this set, it's just basically so that we can get more out of the quads. The isolation work is before the compound work on legs, because generally, you can't replicate the amount of load you can put through your quads on a leg extension in that shortened position. There's no other movement that you can replicate that with, or you can get anything close to it with how much load you can put through the quad when it's shortened. It's just not the same as any other movement. So that's why we'll have these isolations first going into the leg work. Often I feel like it doesn't take away from the compounds. I feel like it helps the compounds, but this third set, I don't know. I'm trying to work out whether potentially this is taken away from the compounds. We're still playing around a little bit with programming, so we're still assessing things and still learning, of course. So trying to work out whether this set potentially takes away from the compound. So with this final set, we're pausing for 3 seconds in the lengthened range and then driving up. There's no band on now, so it feels really light in the shortened range because we've tried to get the most out of that in the last 2 sets. And then we finish off by sort of making the most out of time in the lengthened range, and then having a bit of a pause in the stretch there. But I think that, like I say, potentially is taken away from the compound work that we then go into. So we've got the hack here. So this is the Watson hacks, the hydraulic one. So you can set the angle by using the pump at the back of the machine. So currently we've got it at 30 centimeters high. So I've got a ruler in my bag, so we measure 2 15 centimeter rulers. It's quite harsh. It's quite a harsh hack, to be honest. Obviously you can see I'm only doing 3 plates on it. Obviously the higher that you have it, the steeper the angle, the harder it is. I've got those pads above my shoulders because the range of the machine, I'll hit the bottom if I don't have those on. So I've got those on with bands on so that I can get a full range. What we're trying to do with our leg training at the minute as well is keep a lot of the reps continuous. So trying to keep as many things as sort of constant tension as possible so that we're not sort of making the set longer and longer and longer and accumulating more and more central fatigue for not really any or very small benefit of stimulus. But it's very, very hard. It's a skill to get good at the breathing and the bracing and keep the reps continuous. But it's only second time that we've been on that, so there's plenty of room to improve there. Then we go on to the pivot leg press. So this is a cluster set, so we're aiming for 5 rounds of 4 reps, 20 total reps. So generally you want to choose a weight that you could probably get 10 reps for and then get it for 20 reps. Obviously with the breaks in between. So you'll hit 4 reps, rack it, 20 seconds rest. I wasn't happy with this set, to be honest. Last week it felt really good, and then this week we added a plate each side, so it's obviously 40 kilos up in total, and it felt a lot heavier. The range wasn't as good. With my adductor, I hate making excuses, but because my adductor's not right in the bottom of any rep, so at the bottom of the hack, at the bottom of this, it just pulls, and it feels, it's hard to take your mind off that, worrying that your adductor's going to pop. So that was frustrating. But generally it's still good. Like, it's still a decent set. I still, I don't get me wrong, I got off it and my quads were absolutely battered, but it could have been better, and I want to standardize everything that I'm doing to make sure that I'm not cheating any progression. So I'm going to look at that and potentially try and do it as a tap and go. On the other day, we do a 45-degree Watson leg press as a tap and go. And obviously, because then you know that you're standardizing every single rep and the depth of every rep. So I'm going to look into potentially doing that if I can on the pivot, and the depth will be crazy if I'm tapping at the bottom. Then we go on to glutes. So there's not a Nautilus glute drive, unfortunately, at Warehouse. There is a hip thrust machine, but it's not the best. There is a Smith, but at the minute, like, for some reason, like, me and Reese, the bar, we just can't get it comfortable for a hip thrust. So we opted for just doing the abductor instead. And to be honest, like, I actually connect really well with the abductor. Doing this as a rest pause, like a high-ish rep rest pause, like a 12 to 15 rest pause. I really like it. But at some point, I want to make sure that we're having some form of hip extension in. So either a hip thrust or a 45-degree hyper. Only thing is, the 45-degree hyper is nailed into the floor, and the range of motion isn't great if you're trying to load it. But the abductor felt great, and you know, it's still a good glute stimulus towards the end of the session. And then we finish off with a little bit of arms. So I've got just a single arm supinated dumbbell curl, and then we just finished off as well with like a muscle round on a rope bicep curl, which I didn't get filmed. But yeah, it was a good session, very good session. Lately, every session's been really, really good. This was one where there was a couple of things that could have been better. So yeah, wasn't, you know, still a very good session, but just recently everything's been amazing. So, you know, you almost count these average sessions as a bit like, oh, that's annoying. But they happen. They do happen. Main thing is getting everything nailed, and then, you know, progressing from there. I wouldn't say I'm still getting baseline numbers, because I have got them set, but we're still learning, you know, what we can recover from and how far we can push things, and whether, let's say, a specific exercise is potentially taken away from another, and this and that. So, you know, at the minute, we've got everything in a good spot, but we can always get better. There's always things to improve. There's, you know, things we're still learning. So yeah, it's all well and good, you know, performing a decent program and being happy with it, but I always want to improve and get better, and I think there's ways that we still can. So yeah, that's the goal, is to continue to improve and run this off season through the ground and just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and hopefully that will equate to size. Well, we know it will equate to size. But yeah, I'm going to leave the video there, guys. So thank you all for watching. I have covered now upper 1 and lower 2, I believe. So I need to cover upper 2 and lower 1. Is that right? I think. So I'll get those covered at some point. Probably they'll be the next couple of videos. I'll just be running through these. And any questions at all that anyone has, please just ask.